Or you just start smiling and you're like, why am I even smiling? Well, hey there. Welcome back. I would like to tell you a story. I want to tell you a tale of disconnected happiness. But first, I want to let you know that when it comes to a number of things that I have written books on, a number of things I've made podcasts about, especially the psych charms, they've all come from a place of personal experience. And as somebody who seeks first to understand, as somebody who discovers, distills, disseminates, and so forth, it's my pattern to sort of say to the universe, hey, what's this thing I'm feeling? What's this thing I've experienced? Why do I react this way? And sometimes it's, why don't I see other people reacting this way? It's that latter part that makes me so interested and nosy into the way that people are feeling and speaking and reacting. I've learned that some of the things I deal with and some of the ways that I process data is related to hypervigilance, which comes from things that have happened in my childhood. I've learned that attention to detail and other things could be attributed to some spectrum of autism or something to do with ADHD. Now, I'm not trying to put labels on things that don't need labels. I'm not trying to say, hey, look at me, I have this thing. Woohoo, I'm special. That's not what I'm saying. It might sound like that. I understand. What I'm saying is I have a perspective and I'm trying to just explain it to you so that you can put yourself in my shoes and see where some of this stuff is coming from. And I decided in this particular episode to actually tell it like a story. One of the few rare feedback elements I do receive is people saying, I'd like to know more about you. Tell us more about yourself. So I'm acting on that. Getting back to what I started to say. I usually experience something and then try to figure it out, and then I kind of weigh it and say, is this normal? Is this something that other people experience? And if so, why haven't I ever heard of this? Why don't people talk about this? This seems pretty intense. What is this? And then I do research. I find fairly often that I've already given it a name, and it just was sort of nonchalant to me. It's just a part of my life. Oh, well, that's this thing. That's this thing. And the research reveals that a luminary in psychology actually talked about this 100 years ago. And it's called this. And this is no different. So I wanted to talk to you about what I call disconnected happiness. But others, namely Peter McGraw and Caleb Warren, called it Benign Violation Theory. That sounds pretty juicy, doesn't it? Have you ever laughed at something that you probably shouldn't have laughed at? Have you ever been in a situation that was painful, long-term suffering, or something that was just completely wrong? Something that you've encountered in your life and thought, how did I get here? What is this? And you laughed? You just sort of giggled at it? You just sort of shook your head, closed your eyes, and as you can hear in my voice right now, you had some humor. Where you thought, there's no humor. There's no humor in this. Why am I laughing? According to the two gentlemen that I just introduced, they call that benign violation theory. And that is when we find humor in situations that are wrong or absurd, but aren't necessarily threatening or harmful. Now, in the cases that I'm telling you about, I think, it could be something in your life where it is threatening and harmful. And you just laugh at it. You laugh in the face of fear. You just laugh. Or you're alone and you're sitting there staring off into space or sipping your coffee or what have you. And it just crosses your mind that you're in the middle of this situation. And instead of going, oh my God, you just start laughing. It's not a denial. It's not a deflection. It's not even a disconnection. It's a way of coping. Now, in my case, there's a bit of a different facet to it. Yes, this is what happens to me. In fact, it's what literally started this podcast episode, is that it was happening and I had to do some research on it. But the reason I call it disconnected happiness is that it felt like a certain amount of happiness that had no reason, right? If you're looking forward to seeing a friend or your loved one, or you're looking forward to a meal that you're just you've been craving for 3 weeks, or you're getting out to do a thing, or you get a raise, or you get a bonus, or you get something in your life that clearly has a lot of happiness connected to it. You get your me time and so forth. Whatever it is, that happiness is connected to that thing. But if you experience similar happiness, which I'm having right now, and it's not really connected to anything, you can kind of feel like, well, why am I having this disconnected happiness? Now, we're not talking about hysteria. I just want to make that clear. People who experience a lot of trauma and stress may actually experience hysteria, which is them bursting out and laughing and having lots of actions that aren't very reasonable. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having a baseline of happiness and having it disconnected. I mean, imagine this. Imagine if you can't help it, but you're just a happy person. You're someone who's filled with positivity and energy. And you can't really attribute that to anything other than it's self-generated. So it makes sense that that would just come out because it's just sort of waiting. Like, well, okay, it's there. Hello. This is what happens to me. And that happiness sometimes gets funneled into doing things like producing a podcast episode, or writing, or creating, or speaking with friends, and so on and so forth. I am not in a position, unfortunately, to know exactly how much happiness people have in general, to intimately know how much happiness they have at any moment, to intimately know how much energy that they have to work with on a day-to-day basis and how things affect them. That would be supremely cool to someone like me. I mean, if we rated people on a scale to 1 to 10, do you walk around as a 3? Do you walk around as a 7? Do things that affect you and bring you back down to 4 affect other people and bring them to a 4? Or does it bring them down to a 1 because you're far more resilient? Why are you so resilient? Why am I so resilient? Etc. Those are really interesting things to know. They're very helpful things to know. They're extremely helpful things to know, because in the big list of important things in your life, you look back to last month or last week or yesterday, and you think, how happy was I? How happy am I now? It's a big deal because it's really mostly everything, right? And if we reflect back to Freud's pain-pleasure principle, he states that everything we do is for one of those two things. We're either seeking pleasure or we're avoiding pain. And that's something I talk about. And as I've said before, the next granular level above that is really what I discuss in my next book. But if that's kind of what life is made of, and I know it's made of 3 things, time, energy, and resources, thank you. But if life is happiness, or life is having happiness, I'm okay. I can hear your thoughts so loud, it's interrupting me. I understand. Life isn't just about being happy, Mark. It's about being morally right, and it's about doing the right thing, and it's about earning a living, and it's about being good to people, and this and this. Yes, but those all generate happiness or pain. So it's all about you doing things that make you happy. And yes, doing completely, absolutely unselfish things for other people can generate happiness, which then makes it a selfish act. I'll pause. Well, you should probably pause this to absorb that. Getting back on track. My differentiation between disconnected happiness and the aforementioned theory is that I think some of it, at least what I experience, comes from the fact that I have a baseline of happiness. I think things like gratitude are secret weapons when it comes to sadness and depression and getting through the hard times. Even if the hard times last for 10 or let's say 30 years, you can still rely on gratitude for things that you do have. I think that the opposite of gratitude is comparing where you are to someone else. Now, as a realist, I will tell you that I will defend what you might be thinking right now. Well, yeah, but Mark, if I have a fraction of someone else and they don't really deserve it, or they didn't earn it, or they did bad things, and they have, so much more than me, that makes me feel bad. Well, yes, it does. It does because of your sense of justice and fairness, and you're comparing things, and we are difference engines. We compare things all the time. We're great at making lists. We're great at comparing things that are similar. It's why when you have a negative thought, you can now think of 27 other negative thoughts that make you feel the same crappy way, because we're great at that. And no, it doesn't work that way for positive things right now, which is why I have an episode called The Holy Grail of Positivity Bias. So it's important to me that you're happy. It's important to me that I'm happy. So I'm curious to know if you ever experience any disconnected happiness. Are you in your car listening to music or not listening to music and you just start laughing, or you just start smiling and you're like, why am I even smiling? I mean, sometimes it can be the theory that we just described where you're like, oh my God, I'm under so much stress. Oh my God, why did that person say that to me? Or, oh my God, I can't believe I'm being treated this way at work. Or why am I in this empty chasm when everyone else is not? And so forth. And you just start laughing about it. Maybe you feel violated and you just feel whatever. There's nothing I can do about it. Or maybe you just have some happiness and you don't have anything to connect it to, which is okay too. So here's to you being happy. Here's to me being happy. And here's to us finding a way to make each other happy. Thank you.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Join the community, patreon.com/alchemy for life.
I believe in the better days. Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.